Earlier this year, Violet went to Laguna Beach in California to meet a real superstar of the computer games world. Dave Perry is the hit programmer behind big games like Aladdin and Earthworm Jim. And this year, he and his team have been creating Earthworm Jim 2.
Shh! And here he is, the great man himself, clearly deep in thought. Now, we've arranged to interview Dave about his new game, Earthworm Jim 2, which he's almost certainly thinking about at this very moment.
I'd just like to thank the Academy for this honor. I'd like to thank my mom, my dad, my art teacher. This is a very proud moment for all of us. The Brits are coming!
Well, clearly Dave is lost in his creative thought processes. So, while we're waiting, let's have a look at how Earthworm Jim 2 is coming along.
Bursting onto the screen this Christmas, The Worm is back. The sequel is packed with new features and crazy creatures, with pig shoots and granny movers, just two of the devious new perils that the worm has to slither past. Everyone has their favourite level, but apart from the unicycling maggots, what tickles Dave's fancy?
Dave? Dave who?
This idea of Dave's is going to be just amazing. This whole area is just buzzing.
On a huge project like Earthworm Jim 2, there are dozens of different elements that gel together for the finished game. Traditional artists, software programmers and animators all have to come up with great ideas and make them work, beginning with graphic designers like Steve.
When we came up with the concept, I decided I wanted to see it all in 3D and get as good a 3D look as we possibly could. And the programmers just said, basically, forget it, this can't be done. But I kept on pestering them, and finally they've come up with something that's much better than I thought we'd be able to do, as you can see.
The programmers split the play area into strips from the top of the screen to the bottom. Then they let the strips scroll across the screen separately at different speeds, which gives the illusion of depth and a 3D feel.
What we found on Jim 2 is that we've really pushed the machines now to their final limits. We believe this is as far as they can go.
An even bigger headache was the soil level. Here, Jim can choose to go anywhere on screen by digging through the soil with a dentist's drill. The computer has to make thousands of calculations a second to work out where the soil is falling from, where it will land, and then what shape it will form for Jim to walk on. A real mathematician's nightmare.
My first reaction, you can't do that, but they persuaded me to give it a little bit harder try.
Presumably, if he hadn't solved the problem, Dave would have taken out his other arm.
Dave? Dave who?
Any minute now. Well, you can't hurry these things. The original Earthworm Jim had a very distinctive look because it used a new animation technique.
This technique made Jim move incredibly smoothly, but for Earthworm Jim 2, the animators wanted him to look even sexier.
We continued to use the paper animation like we always had, but we drew a separate shadow layer onto the paper and then put that on top of these images. And when we put the two together, we get this image here with the shadow on top of the drawing, and it gives it a little bit more dimension. And the shadows actually animate with the drawings.
Nice work, but not as sexy as Dave, eh?
Dave? Dave who?
Well, if he wasn't so busy now working on his great ideas, I'd obviously now be thanking Dave for being with us. Still, I'll always treasure the memories of being in the presence of the great man at work. Thanks, Dave.
Nice work if you can get it. Earthworm Jim 2 will be out in December.
But now it's time for this week's news and previews.